scratch, wampum, dough, sugar, clams, loot, bills, bones, bread, bucks, money. Money is, at its essence, that measure.
You are now listening to the wonderful Ozark Podcast. That's right. Such soft-spoken, brilliant, handsome, swinging dicks, bringing you season 4 prediction of Ozark. That's right. We're going to break down what we want to have happen, what we think might happen, all in season 4, right here, right now, on the Ozark Podcast, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. That's right. You know, it's Jamie G. Esquire the 5th, and it's Magnum Mills. Mills, I'm pumped for season 4, baby. It is upon us.
Your voices sounded good there and everything. And, you know, I want to say here, we're going to, at the end here, try to come up with our optimal ending for the season. But for the most part, we're going to try to talk about, you know, what we want from the first half of season 4. So I would say the first main question I have, the first main thing I'm thinking about, Jamie G, and I'll ask you what you think. At the end of these first 7 episodes, where do you want Ruth and Marty to be? Do you want them to be against each other? Do you want them to be united? Do you want one of them to be out of the picture? Like, where do you want Ruth and Marty to be at the end of season 4, part 1?
Look, man, I want them to be united. I don't want to see them battling each other, even though I understand if that's where the show thinks it has to go. It won't be fun. It won't be a good time. Just like you never wanted to, you know, I hated when Jesse and Walt were battling each other. You know, like the best was when they were working together and caring about each other, for me. So I definitely want to see them back. I want, you know, in a perfect world, something will happen with, unfortunately, Ruth will have to turn against Wyatt because there's some strange cult-like thing going on with Darlene. And eventually, I think she'll find her way back to Marty under certain conditions, or Marty will desperately need her and get her back somehow, some way. And that's under certain stipulations, I think, determined by Ruth. But in a perfect world, that's what I'd like to see.
And I agree with that for the most part. Like, we've seen the thing where the anti-hero and the sidekick kind of have to turn against each other, go their separate ways at the end. I would prefer this kind of break the mold there and maybe let them kind of have to unite against a bigger foe going into the back half of that season or whatever. The one thing I'm not sure, do you think that Marty, Ruth, and Wendy can all be aligned? Like, can those 3 all be on the same side, or do you have to split like into a joint where it is like 1-1-1 or 2-1 on one side?
You know, that is the real question here for me. And we touched on this in our season 3 recap on the Ozark podcast. But, you know, we kind of just looked the other way with Ruth and her ability to kind of process and handle the killing of her father, Cade, by Wendy. It was almost like she knew she had to accept it, but she didn't want to. And I still think there's a little grudge in there and a little hatred towards Wendy for sure. But now that Wendy's responsible for the death of Ben, who she loved and who she saw as a good, pure human, this one, it's not like killing Cade. She knew Cade was a piece of shit. Ben, despite his bipolar and some of the problems, you know, he presented, he wasn't Cade, right? He was a good human. And so I think this one might be harder for Ruth to swallow. And I don't know that hatchet can be buried. And I don't know that it can be buried in the first 4 episodes here.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how, you know, because obviously Wendy is very ambitious. Marty is just basically trying to survive, and Ruth doesn't really know, you know, what she wants. Like, she could be out there with the Langmores or whatever. So let me ask this question to you. In this you know, first part of season 4, these first 7 episodes, who is the character that either you want the most or you think is the most likely to die or be killed, be it natural causes, non-natural causes, or whatever? Either who do you think will die and or who do you think will get knocked off?
You know, this is interesting here. When you look at the first block of 7, something tells me if they're going to do it, it might happen that first episode, but I don't know who yet. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to have it be Charlotte. I think that could be a possibility here, to have Charlotte killed, because maybe that's just me not really enjoying her, but I think we could kind of like Celine Dion, man, my heart could go on here, right? Like, I think I could probably live with her being killed and the drama that it would create. Whereas I don't know if they can kill off Jonah, but you know, I probably like that more than one of the big 3 or 4 characters. I think Darlene sticks around for a little bit. I could see Wyatt potentially being killed here too, possibly.
See, actually, I kind of thought that it might be Darlene because it seems that they might be setting up then like she passes all her shit on to Wyatt and Ruth. So then they basically gain all of that kind of power. So then that helps them to kind of push back against Marty. Maybe you see them work with either somehow they come back around to work with the KC mob or the other mob or with a different cartel or something like that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options here. I guess I would say, do you think there is a chance of any of our main characters cooperating with the FBI in the first part of season 4?
Is it a possibility? Yes. Is it going to be Marty in them? No.
Yeah, I'm talking main characters, not not
yeah,
ancillary characters.
yeah. I mean, there's a chance here, but here's what's interesting about this. Could they use it twice, right? So if we have somebody like one of the other main characters, going down that pathway of talking to the FBI in the first half, can they then go back to it, and can that be the out for Marty and the Birds? I don't know that they can use it twice. So if they do it in the first 7, I think that's pretty much it then. I don't know that can be used again in terms of Marty and them getting out of this, at least not through that pathway, which would be a shame because it was an interesting dynamic here to keep in your back pocket, I think, if you're making the show.
Good call. Do you think we ever see either of Helen's kids or Rachel again?
No. I don't. I mean, maybe Helen's daughter comes back and tries to avenge the death or create some chaos there, but I don't think either have enough prominent of a role or anything really hinging on it to where we need them. So I don't know that we will. What about you? I mean,
I think I pretty much agree with that. Same thing. How about remember Sugarman, the guy that Helen was cheating on with? Remember sun came down? Do you think he comes? Like, do you think there's any other random character kind of like that from the past that comes back around in the this first part of season 4?
I think there probably has to be, right? There has to be a new problem. I mean, even though the Birds have insurmountable problems right now and with more to come, I think there has to be a new problem that is out of their control, right? A character comes in from the past, and it very well could be something with Wendy here. They did use Wendy last season with Ben, but I like that dynamic because it creates more tension between Marty and Wendy, and it makes you wonder if either one of them had to choose. I mean, she's got the relationship with Navarro, but he needs Marty. Navarro needs, so it makes you wonder, like, if they had to choose, would they? And so I like that dynamic. So I do think there will be someone. Who it is, I could not tell you, but I do think there will be some sort of a new character and plotline introduced here very early, if not episode 1.
No, I like that. And I would say, kind of as we're rounding out, that was kind of a major change in season 3. We saw more cartel related stuff. In season 4, would you like that to continue, like the increased focus on the cartel, or would you like to go back to more of a Ozark focus story?
Well, I think the cartel is important here, but for me in season 3, the violence between the two, and I get that they had to show that when two are beefing and what that does and how bad it is, because it is. But for me, it kind of took away a little bit about the intelligence of the show that I liked. I like the problems and then somehow, some way, against all odds, solving them and, continuing to build suspense and questions around how this thing ends. I could probably do without it. I think Navarro is clearly going to be the new cartel person. And so, like we had Del, we had Helen, I think we now have Navarro, and that's pretty much it. So something tells me we'll probably get a healthy dose of cartel related stuff, and who knows, maybe Wendy and or Marty's role and responsibilities move beyond just laundering money within Navarro and in the cartel world, especially as his war continues to rage.
And let's say you could only get one more flashback. You want a Del flashback, you want a Buddy flashback, or someone I'm not thinking of?
100% Buddy, bro. I'm sorry. I love Buddy and his wisdom. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, he could just be like this mythical dude who comes back and like solves things. Like, I love Buddy. He was great. And who knows, maybe something happens in the basement in his room with Jonah, and Jonah gets an idea that's sparked by a Buddy flashback or something. That could be cool.
We've seen multiple characters talk to dead people on this show, so I don't think it's impossible to ask for, hey, maybe maybe Buddy shows up one last time, like Obi-Wan Kenobi style, to offer some guidance, whether it's to Jonah or Marty or what have you. So that's a pretty good overview of what we might be hoping for in this first part of season 4. But I would say, all right, before we get out of here, let's put it on the record now. Let's put it on the paper, man, and say what we're hoping for the final ending. And it took me a while to come up with mine, but when I came up with it, it kind of felt right. And I think that ultimately the ending of the show that I kind of like to see is that somehow, like, Marty and Wendy go down, but they do it so that at the end of the show, you have Jonah, Charlotte, Ruth, and Wyatt all kind of like running the money laundering thing, and it's still going. But now they're like, they have more hand, and it's like it's the sins of the father, the sins of the kids. It just keeps going.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I guess I wouldn't be mad at that.
I mean, the birds could go to jail. They could cooperate with the FBI. They could get killed. But somehow at the end of the day, the kids are in charge. That's kind of my
Yeah. And ultimately the cartel still controls. Right. And so, that would be them kind of living this perpetual state of hell for all of eternity, which, maybe this is their purgatory. Right. And so that's an interesting concept. I think for me, it's one of these things where, what do you want, right? And when there's a big show like this, and in no way, shape, or form am I comparing Ozark to the greatness of The Sopranos or Game of Thrones, but I think it's relevant in that there's a lot of different options for an ending, and so therefore all of them could be wrong and all of them could be right, and there's going to be a lot of judging on this no matter which way they decide to go. And it's not as clear cut as you think. I mean, one or both could die, all could go away and disappear, and go into protective custody. Like, there are different things that could happen here. I guess for me, the only thing I'll say right now, and that's because I got to keep y'all coming back, this is just a little teaser, I'm just going to flash the tip on you right quick. I just want to see finality one way. I want to get like closure one way or the other. I don't care if they're chopped to a million pieces. I don't care if they go to Mexico and they live there. I don't care if they move to Tasmania. Like, I just want some sort of closure here. I don't want to leave it open ended. That's the only thing I'll say what I'm really looking for here.
I mean, that makes a ton of sense. And I would say, all right, like right before we get out of here with our season 4 preview, I would crack this beer and ask you, like, all right, so you're Marty Bird. We caught up with him at the first episode of this series. So when you're walking out of here, like, what do you think is a win for Marty Bird other than being alive at the end of Ozark? Like, what does Marty Bird have to do to, like, at the end of the series, you feel like, oh yeah, Marty Bird won?
He has to free either himself or at the bare minimum his family and whatever's left of it of the burden of the cartel. That's at the end of the day, that's what he has to do. Or he has to dedicate himself to just being a career criminal and do it real well. But I just don't see that coming. So for him, even if he has to sacrifice his own life to make sure he frees his family from this burden, that I think that is his ultimate thing here. And that's that's a win for him, man. Anything left other than that is anything less would be uncivilized.
You don't want to go too much Fast and Furious, but like family, like you do want to see Marty ultimately stick up for his family, I think. And that's probably one of the most important things you could get here. I would like it at the end if it kind of paid off the idea that he is supposed to be like this really smart dude or whatever, and he wins it kind of like in a smart way, not a lucky way or some bullshit or whatever. And just, again, that it's well written. I don't want it to end in tragedy, but on the other hand, it's hard to see a bright and sunny ending that's going to work for everybody here. So something in the middle.
Yeah, I don't think this will be the perfect ending to a fairy tale, right? I mean, they're not going to probably fall in love and sail off into the sunset, although if they did, that would be interesting. But I think be prepared for anything. My biggest thing is let's make sure it's final and there's some closure here.
Well, now we might have to start this entire thing over again, because now I just realized that these Snells do give people honey. So we could have done this whole podcast called Something for the Honey, and we didn't do it. So yeah, this has been the Ozark Podcast, but we're going to have to just re-record all of these things over again so we can be Something for the Honey, because Darlene is a crazy bitch, and if you don't accept the honey, then
Something for the honeys. Guys, We hope you're excited, as excited as we are about season 4, which airs, Mills. When does it air?
It comes out here just on Friday, January 20th. Going to be exciting. I believe that's the entire first 7 episodes. It's the first block of the 14 of season 4. We're not going to get to them right on Friday. We're going to take a couple days. We're going to try to watch the first 3-4 episodes, break it down, come out with a podcast early next week, breaking down those episodes, and then we will circle back around right after that, come back to the remainder of the season, then break it all down in one more podcast and look forward to the last 7 episodes of Ozark on Netflix.
No diggity, no doubt. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our free content. Thank you for listening and watching the Ozark Podcast, and we'll be back with more. Ozark, Joe Blow Football Show, anything we decide ever to do. Peace.
Thank you.
I'm so fucking focused. Yeah.